Okay, my question is, what can we do? What can everybody do? In Winona, Minnesota, where I live, people are adamant about recycling, and it's actually illegal not to recycle. And my neighbors are very, very keen on recycling and doing it properly and everything. And so I'm thinking, what else? And that's important because the largest material that gets recycled is newspapers. Well, that means that you're cutting down less trees if you recycle your paper. So I'm thinking, what else can we do? So we can have a tax write-off for planting trees, which I mentioned in another video, but also you can plant trees. So if you plant trees, you're taking up CO2 and you're giving off oxygen, which is the only way that you can restore oxygen to the environment. So global warming may be an issue of having too much CO2, but every time you give me too much CO2, you also take away my oxygen, which is going to make people function in a less optimum way, both intellectually and physically. So what do I recommend? I recommend planting trees, especially either evergreens or trees that don't lose their needles, or plant fruit trees because they sequester 30% more than other kinds of trees, except for evergreens. Also, don't use cement if you can possibly avoid it. Build with wood, because if you leave wood in the forest, it's going to decay and turn into CO2, release CO2. But if you build with it, then it's not going to do that. You'll preserve it. And if you build with cement, on the other hand, you'll be releasing 6 to 8% of the world's CO2 by calcining the cement, or making the cement into making the cement that goes into concrete. So don't build with concrete. Another aspect of trying to address global warming and preserving our environment is don't eat as much meat. Also, try to drive an electric car, get solar collectors on your house. An aspect that I'm not that familiar with, but I'm really interested in now, is how farmers can address global warming, because a lot of CO2 is released every time they till the soil in order to plant things. So if you can plant things without tilling the soil, just plant where you need to, that seems to be an important thing. So why? Why should we worry about the environment? Because you and I breathe. And if you stop breathing for less than a minute, you're in trouble. So it's a very important aspect of being alive. And the reciprocal part of breathing is, you take in oxygen, but you also release CO2, and plants sympathetically with us take up oxygen, take up our CO2 and release oxygen. So plants and trees are very important. Everything breathes. Everything breathes. This house that I'm sitting in breathes. The heater furnace downstairs takes in oxygen, burns stuff, oil, or in this case propane, and releases, guess what, CO2 and particulate matter, water vapor. So everything breathes. Your ship that you went fishing on today, your house, your animal, your dog, everything breathes. So you have to ask yourself, what way is this contributing to global warming? Or is it addressing global warming by taking up CO2? So when I was thinking about it the other day, if we weren't digging up anything, we would be in fine shape in terms of the environment, because we wouldn't be digging up oil and gas and other things that we burn, right? And if we didn't dig up limestone to make cement, if we didn't make plastics out of oil and gas, we would have addressed the issue of too much plastic in the environment, too much CO2 in the environment, and too much concrete in the environment. So if we didn't dig things up and lived on the surface with the cycles that we have that are in equilibrium in terms of the gases and the water vapor and all, we'd be fine. We'd keep planting trees, and the world would be in equilibrium instead of increasingly hotter because we're releasing too much CO2 because we're digging things up.